My sister told me to live on the street so her guests could have my room, but when I told her fiancé the truth, he canceled the wedding, and my parents will never forget what I did. I'm 17 years old. I'm a senior in high school, and about 2 months ago, my parents basically kicked me out of the house so my sister's wedding guests could stay in my room. Sounds absurd when I put it like that, right? But let me tell you the whole story because this was literally the breaking point of years and years of being treated like I didn't matter. I guess I should start by explaining what my family was like before all this. I have an older sister, Christina, who's 26, and basically my whole life she's been my parents' golden child. And when I say golden child, that's no exaggeration. I mean, everything she did was perfect, and everything I did was wrong or just didn't matter. Christina got good grades, was popular, had a boyfriend since college, and my parents acted like she was the next Mother Teresa or something. Me, on the other hand, I was like the furniture in the house. You know what I mean? I was there. I took up space. But nobody really paid attention to me unless I needed something or wanted to complain about something I did wrong. Growing up, it was always like that. Christina had the biggest bedroom, the best car when she turned 16. My parents went to all her school events but missed mine because they had to work or were tired. For her high school graduation, they threw a huge party with like 100 people. For mine, they'll probably say there's no money or something. It's not like I was a bad kid. Honestly, I got good grades too. I never got in trouble. Helped around the house, but none of that seemed to matter because I wasn't Christina. The thing is, Christina met Marcus like 3 years ago. He seemed like a good guy. Honestly, he worked in finance or something, was polite, always treated me well when he came to the house, like he'd ask me how school was going and stuff. At the time, I thought maybe he was genuinely a good guy, and turns out I was right, but I'll get to that. Anyway, they got engaged last year and my parents went crazy with happiness. It was all they talked about. Christina's perfect wedding, how it was going to be the event of the year, all that stuff. Meanwhile, I was in my senior year of high school, trying to survive and preparing for the SATs I was going to take in December. For those who don't know, the SATs are super important for getting into college, especially if you want scholarships, and I needed a full scholarship because I knew my parents weren't going to help me pay for college. They'd already made that clear to me a bunch of times, basically told me they'd already paid for Christina's college and I'd have to figure it out on my own, which, well, was expected at that point. So we get to November of this year. The wedding was planned for December, like 2 weeks after my SATs. I was super stressed studying. I'd hired a tutor with money I earned working over the summer at a store. I was doing practice tests every day, sleeping like 4 hours because I also had to keep my grades up for college applications. It was a lot, basically, but I knew it was my only way out of that house. One day I come home from school. It was like a Tuesday, and my parents are sitting in the living room with Christina. They call me over and I'm thinking, well, maybe they finally want to ask me how my SAT prep is going or something. But no. My dad tells me, Jordan, we need your room for the wedding guests. And I was just like, what? Turns out they'd invited a bunch of out-of-town people and needed more space to host them, and they decided the best solution was to kick me out of my room. I tell them, okay, and where am I going to sleep? And my mom says, well, you can stay with your aunt for a couple weeks. My aunt is my dad's sister. She lives like an hour away in the suburbs. She's kind of eccentric, lives alone, doesn't have internet at her house, literally, in 2025. And basically there was no way I could study there for the SATs that were 2 weeks away. I explain all this to them. I tell them I can't leave now, that I have the SATs in 2 weeks, that I need to study, that I have all my stuff here. And you know what they told me? That I was selfish, that it was always about me, that why couldn't I sacrifice for my sister on her special day? Christina was sitting there saying nothing, just nodding while my parents yelled at me. I tried to reason with them. I told them I could sleep on the couch, on the living room floor, wherever. I just needed to be in the house so I could study and have access to internet and my materials. Nothing, my dad says. You have 24 hours to pack your things and get out. 24 hours to leave my own home. 2 weeks before the most important exams of my life up to that point. I went to my room crying. I couldn't believe it. I literally felt like I was in a nightmare. I called Christina. I thought maybe she could talk to them, make them see reason. She answers and I tell her everything. I tell her to please talk to our parents. And that this doesn't make sense, that they're basically kicking me out of the house. And you know what she told me? She told me, and I quote, "If you have to live on the streets for a few weeks, do it. This is my wedding, and you're not going to ruin it with your drama." And she hung up on me. I sat there on my bed for like an hour, unable to process what had just happened. My own sister had just told me to go live on the streets. My own parents were kicking me out of the house, at 17 years old, before the Sats, for wedding guests. It was so surreal that even today I sometimes have trouble believing it was real. I didn't know what to do. I started packing my stuff in a panic, crying, trying to think of options. I didn't have much money saved. Maybe like $800 from my summer job. I thought about a hotel, but they weren't going to let me stay being a minor. My maternal grandparents live in another state, and my grandmother was sick. I couldn't ask them to help me. My paternal grandparents also live far away, in Arizona, I think, and I didn't want to bother them because I barely saw them. So I called my best friend. I've known her since 6th grade, and I told her everything. She got furious, told me to come to her house immediately to talk to her parents. I packed what I could in 2 suitcases and a backpack, basically clothes, my study books, my laptop, important stuff. My parents didn't even come downstairs to say goodbye or see if I was okay. Christina was in her room talking on the phone about flowers or something for the wedding. I got to my friend's house and her parents were incredible. They literally hugged me, let me stay in their guest room, told me I could stay as long as I needed. Her mom made me dinner and sat down with me to talk, asked me what had happened, and when I told her the whole story, she teared up. She told me she'd noticed for years that my parents treated me differently, but never imagined they'd go this far. The next few days were a blur. I tried to study, but couldn't concentrate. I was so angry and sad and confused. My parents sent me like 2 messages asking if I was already settled at my aunt's house. I told them I wasn't at my aunt's, that I was with a friend. They replied with an okay and nothing else. They didn't even ask how I was or if I needed anything. The day of the Sats came. I'm not gonna lie, it was horrible. I tried to focus, but my mind was in 1,000 places. I kept thinking about how my own parents had kicked me out, how my sister didn't care, what my future was going to be like. I did the test the best I could, but I knew it wasn't my best effort. I came out of there feeling worse than I already felt. That night, I was at my friend's house, lying in the guest room bed, and I started thinking about Marcus. He'd always been kind to me, and something told me he didn't know what had really happened. I decided to message him. I don't know. I guess part of me wanted at least one person on that side of the family to know the truth. I told him everything, from the beginning to that moment. I sent him screenshots of Christina's messages telling me to live on the streets. Everything. He didn't respond that night, and I thought, well, probably Christina already filled his head with her version of the story. But the next day, Marcus called me. He sounded super serious and asked if we could meet. We met at a Starbucks near where I was staying. He told me he'd confronted Christina about what I told him, and that she finally admitted she'd kicked me out because she found me annoying and didn't want to deal with me during the wedding preparations. Literally, her words were that I was annoying. After years of being her brother, of never causing her problems, of always being there when she needed something, I was annoying to her. Marcus told me he couldn't marry someone capable of doing that to their own brother, that he'd seen many red flags in Christina, but had wanted to believe he was exaggerating, but this was too much. He told me he was so sorry, that he wished he'd known before how they treated me. That conversation was weird, because on one hand, I felt validated that someone finally saw how wrong everything was, but on the other hand, I felt guilty that because of me, his wedding wasn't going to happen. Like 2 hours after that conversation, the calls started. First my mom, then my dad, then Christina, all yelling, asking me what I'd told Marcus. How dare I ruin my sister's wedding, that I was selfish, that I always caused problems. I hung up on them. I didn't have energy for their screaming. They sent me like 50 more messages, threatening me not to post anything on social media, that if I ruined the family's reputation, they were going to make my life impossible. As if they hadn't made it impossible already. That night, I made a decision. I called my paternal grandparents. It had been like 2 years since I'd talked to them, because my parents always made excuses about why I couldn't visit them or why they couldn't come. I told them everything, absolutely everything, from as far back as I could remember. The favoritism towards Christina, how they ignored me, the times they left me home alone for days to go on trips with Christina, how they kicked me out for the wedding, everything. My grandmother was crying on the other side of the phone. My grandfather was furious. They told me they were going to take the first flight there. My grandparents arrived 2 days later. They stayed at a hotel and came to see me at my friend's house. It was the first time in years that someone from my family hugged me for real. Like they actually cared. My grandmother wouldn't stop apologizing. Said they should have insisted more on being present, that they never should have trusted that my parents were taking good care of me. My grandfather was just as angry as I was, said he was going to fix things. My grandparents also contacted my maternal grandparents and told them everything. Turns out, they didn't know anything about what was happening either. My maternal grandmother was too sick to travel, but she called me crying, telling me she loved me, that she was so sorry she hadn't been there for me. It was the first time in a long time that I felt there were people who really cared about me. Christina and Marcus publicly announced that the wedding was postponed indefinitely. Christina blamed planning issues or something, but everyone who was close knew the truth. My parents kept calling me, sending me messages, but I didn't answer them anymore. I had nothing to say to them. My paternal grandparents stayed in town for 2 weeks, arranging everything legally. My friend's parents said I could stay with them until I finished high school, that they wanted to help. My grandparents agreed, but wanted to make sure everything was legal and proper. Basically, what happened is my parents signed some papers giving up their rights over me, which they did super quickly. They didn't even fight it. And my grandparents got primary custody, but with the agreement that I would live with my friend's family during the school year. As for Christina and Marcus, they officially broke up and canceled the wedding like a month after all this. Marcus sent me a message saying I'd done the right thing, that he couldn't be with someone like that, and that he hoped I was okay. It was weird, but also nice, I guess, to know that at least he saw who Christina really was. Now it's been like 2 months. I live with my friend's family. They treat me like I'm part of the family. I literally feel more at home here than I ever felt in my other house. My grandparents come visit me every 2 weeks. We talk on the phone almost every day. It's incredible to have that kind of relationship with them now. My maternal grandparents also call me often. My grandmother is a bit better health-wise and is planning to come visit me soon. Last week I got my SAT results. They weren't as good as I expected, which made me sad because I know I could have done better if I'd had the right conditions to study. But my friend's parents told me I can take the test again in the spring, that they're going to help me prepare, not to worry. And you know what? For the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful about my future. My parents and Christina still try to contact me from time to time. I blocked Christina a while ago. My parents, I sometimes answer with short messages just so they know I'm alive, but nothing more. I have no interest in having a relationship with them. My therapist. Yes, I go to therapy now. My friend's parents helped me get one. Says it's okay if I don't want to forgive them. That I don't have to force a relationship that hurts me just because they're my biological family. I'm happier now than I've been in years. Less anxious, too. I sleep better, eat better. I can concentrate on my studies. My friend's parents are helping me with college applications. My grandparents say they're going to help financially, however they can. For the first time in my life, I feel like there are adults who genuinely want me to succeed and who support me. Sometimes, I think about everything that happened and I still can't quite believe it. Like, my own parents kicked me out of the house for wedding guests. My own sister told me to live on the streets. It's so absurd that if someone told me that story, I'd think they're exaggerating. But it happened. It was real. And it completely changed my life. The funny thing is, in a way, I'm grateful to them. If this hadn't happened, I probably would have kept living in that toxic house, putting up with their favoritism and their indifference, thinking it was normal, that I was the problem. Now I know it wasn't me. It was never me. They just never loved me the way they should have loved me. And that's on them, not on me. The other night, my friend's mom asked me what I wanted for Christmas. I started crying because never in my life had my parents ask me that. They just bought whatever, and if I liked it, fine, and if not, well, it didn't matter anyway. I told her I already had everything I needed, that having a family that loves me is enough. She started crying too and hugged me, told me I'd always have a home with them. So yeah, I'm 17 years old. Technically, my grandparents have my custody, but I live with my best friend's family, and I'm happier and calmer than I've been in my entire life. My biological parents and my sister are over there living with the consequences of their actions, and honestly, it's not my problem. I'm focused on finishing high school, getting into a good college, and building a life surrounded by people who actually love me and value me, and that, at the end of the day, is all that really matters.